The last echo of Oskar Lindqvist's laughter still haunted the midnight sun of that Swedish midsummer. At 2:47 a.m., when darkness should have claimed the world, but the Nordic sky blazed with impossible light, the 16-year-old had been sketching runes on birch bark by the lake's edge. His notebook lay open, pencil still warm from fingers that had traced ancient symbols with reverent precision. A half-finished drawing of the summer solstice crown scattered with wildflowers, meadowsweet, cornflower, and lingonberry blossoms, that his grandmother had taught him to weave. The midsummer pole stood sentinel in the distance, its ribbons dancing in wind that carried only silence now, the echoes of traditional songs fading into the ethereal twilight. His footprints led to the water's edge in neat, purposeful steps, then simply stopped. As if the eternal twilight had opened its arms and swallowed him whole, leaving behind only the mystery of Lake Siljan's mirror-still surface reflecting an endless sky that refused to acknowledge night. The ancient birch bark bore witness, symbols half-carved, stories half-told, secrets half-revealed. But what truly happened during Sweden's most sacred celebration, when ancient traditions meet modern mystery and the midnight sun transforms reality into something beyond comprehension, remains a secret that even 14 years of searching through the endless Nordic summer couldn't reveal, and that haunts the eternal silence of these sacred Swedish lands forever. Oskar Lindqvist embodied everything a Swedish summer should represent. Golden-haired like ripened wheat fields, adventurous, has the Viking explorers in his bloodline, deeply connected to the ancient rhythms that pulse through genuine Scandinavian heritage. Born in the picturesque town of Rättvik, nestled on the eastern shores of Lake Siljan in Sweden's cultural heartland of Dalarna province, he'd grown up where Viking longships once carved through morning mist and where midsummer celebrations stretched back over 1,000 years of unbroken tradition. His father, Lars Lindqvist, served as the town's official historian and cultural keeper, guardian of local folklore and protector of traditions that drew tourists from around the world. To witness authentic Swedish heritage, Oskar had inherited that sacred connection to Swedish cultural DNA. He could weave traditional flower crowns with the intricate skill of ancient maidens, knew every folk song that echoed across the lake during white nights, understood the deeper, spiritual meanings behind rituals that others saw as mere tourist pageantry. His hands moved with inherited knowledge when crafting traditional items. His voice carried ancient melodies perfectly, and his eyes reflected the deep blue of Swedish summer skies. That midsummer eve of 2010, the celebration had been particularly magical even by Dalarna standards. The midnight sun hung impossibly bright in the endless sky, casting everything in ethereal golden light that made the entire world feel suspended between reality and Nordic dream. Extended families gathered around the towering midsummer pole decorated with wildflower garlands. Children danced to melodies older than Sweden itself, and Lake Siljan reflected the endless sky like a mystical portal to the realm of Norse gods. Oskar had been methodically documenting everything in his treasured leather journal, sketching traditional costumes with artist's precision and recording ancient stories his grandmother whispered during quiet moments. He was passionate about preserving Swedish cultural heritage for future generations, planning to follow his father's scholarly footsteps into local historical research and cultural preservation. The tight-knit community knew him as the remarkable boy who could bring ancient stories to vivid life, who could make Viking sagas feel as immediate and real as morning coffee shared around kitchen tables. His respect for tradition was legendary among locals. He never missed a seasonal celebration, always wore traditional Swedish clothing during festivals, and could recite folk tales that most adults had forgotten. However, beneath the peaceful surface of life in these timeless Nordic lands, there were subtle details that no one had noticed, details that would become crucial to understanding how someone could simply vanish during Sweden's most sacred night in one of the world's most organized, technologically advanced, and fundamentally safe societies. The first 24 hours after Oskar's inexplicable disappearance mobilized the entire Rättvik community with the characteristic efficiency and systematic thoroughness that defines Nordic society at its finest. Swedish search and rescue systems, consistently ranked among the world's most advanced and effective, deployed immediately with military precision. State-of-the-art helicopters swept systematically across Lake Siljan's impressive 354 square kilometers, their thermal imaging cameras scanning methodically through the endless forests of Dalarna province, where ancient spruces and towering pines created dense canopies that had sheltered Swedish communities for millennia. Volunteer search teams, organized with characteristic Swedish precision and cooperative spirit, combed meticulously through birch groves and pine forests where midsummer celebrations had taken place continuously for centuries, following traditional paths that connected sacred sites throughout the region. The local police force, specifically trained for Nordic wilderness conditions and experienced in handling emergencies in Sweden's challenging natural environment, established comprehensive search grids that covered every conceivable inch of the sacred cultural landscape. What struck experienced investigators immediately was the almost supernatural timing. Oscar had vanished during those mystical hours when Sweden's legendary midnight sun creates a parallel world without darkness, where time becomes fluid and ancient. Magic feels not just possible but tangible. Witness accounts from reliable community members described seeing him near the lake at different times throughout the night. But the endless twilight made temporal certainty virtually impossible to establish. Some elderly residents swore they'd seen him dancing joyfully around the midsummer pole at 1 a.m. Others insisted with equal certainty he'd been sitting alone by the water at 2:30 a.m., sketching intently in his beloved journal. The community's immediate response reflected deeply ingrained Swedish cultural values. Lagom, the fundamental concept of balanced cooperation and measured response, and allemansrätten, the cherished right to roam freely through nature that connects all Swedes to their landscape. Neighbors immediately opened their homes to search teams without question. Local businesses provided essential supplies without payment or bureaucracy, and even international tourists joined the effort with quiet determination that transcended language barriers. Traditional Swedish stoicism was genuinely challenged as extended families who'd celebrated midsummer together harmoniously for generations faced their first genuine tragedy during their most sacred and joyful time of year. The psychological impact rippled through the community like stones dropped in still water. How could someone vanish during their most protected cultural moment? If you're interested in mysteries of disappearances in Nordic landscapes, leave a like to help us continue bringing these unique stories from Scandinavia. Because what we discovered about those first crucial hours would reveal how even Sweden's most efficient and technologically advanced systems can fail when confronted with the vastness of Nordic wilderness and the mystical transformative power of authentic midsummer night celebrations. As the comprehensive investigation deepened through Sweden's seemingly endless summer days, when daylight stretched impossibly long and created its own dreamlike investigation atmosphere, three primary theories emerged from the depths of Nordic mystery and cultural complexity. The first theory focused intensively on the deceptively treacherous beauty of Lake Siljan itself. Formed by a massive meteorite impact approximately 377 million years ago, creating dangerous underwater caves, sudden depth changes, and hidden geological formations that even modern sonar technology struggled to map completely and accurately. Swedish marine rescue specialists, experts in Nordic water conditions, noted with growing concern that the lake's ancient astronomical origins had created unique underwater current systems, especially dangerous during midsummer when glacial melt from surrounding mountains combines unpredictably with warmer surface waters heated by the endless sun. The midnight sun's persistent disorienting light could easily confuse even experienced local swimmers about depth perception, distance judgment, and directional orientation in water that appeared deceptively calm. The second comprehensive theory centered on Sweden's vast, largely unmapped wilderness areas. Dalarna province contains thousands upon thousands of square kilometers of dense, ancient forest, where even modern GPS signals weaken significantly among towering pines and centuries-old spruces that create natural electromagnetic interference. During midsummer's mystical hours, when traditional celebrations invoke deep connections to pre-Christian spirituality and ancient Nordic practices, it seemed entirely possible that Oscar had ventured deliberately into sacred groves that local elders still whispered about in hushed, respectful tones during winter evenings. Swedish folklore, passed down through generations of oral tradition, speaks specifically of midsummer as a night when the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds grows dangerously thin, when young people with strong cultural connections might follow mysterious lights that lead to nowhere earthly, drawn by forces older and more powerful than Viking settlements or Christian conversion. The third theory proved most psychologically disturbing to investigators: the genuine possibility that Oscar's remarkably deep knowledge of Swedish historical traditions had led him to attempt some dangerous ancient ritual, perhaps trying to experience authentic midsummer mysteries that his intensive academic research had uncovered in historical documents. His personal journal contained increasingly frequent references to hidden celebrations and true midsummer secrets that strongly suggested he'd been studying traditional practices that predated Christian influence in Scandinavia by centuries. The Nordic noir atmosphere intensified dramatically as investigators realized they weren't simply searching for a missing teenager through standard procedures, but potentially pursuing mysteries rooted deeply in Sweden's pagan past and pre-Christian spiritual practices. The endless summer light created its own unique psychological pressure. Search teams working exhausting 18-hour days in perpetual twilight, their natural circadian rhythms completely disrupted, began reporting increasingly strange experiences that challenged their rational worldview. Some reliable team members claimed to hear distinctive laughter echoing across the lake at impossible hours when no one else was present. Others swore they glimpsed a figure dressed in traditional Swedish costume dancing mysteriously between the birch trees during dawn hours. As the investigation advanced systematically through Sweden's mystical and ancient landscape, each new piece of carefully gathered evidence only deepened the central mystery, confronting experienced investigators with the unsettling reality that Nordic nature guards its deepest secrets with ancient, implacable power that modern technology cannot easily penetrate. Completely unique to Sweden's midsummer investigation were specialized theories that could only exist within authentic Nordic cultural and geographical settings, reflecting the intersection of ancient tradition and modern mystery. The comprehensive midnight sun disorientation theory suggested that Oscar, despite his extensive local knowledge and cultural expertise, had become dangerously confused by the eternal twilight that characterizes Swedish summer nights and creates psychological conditions unknown in other climates. Leading medical experts specializing in Nordic health conditions explained how constant, unrelenting daylight severely disrupts natural melatonin production, creating a persistent, dreamlike state where reality and hallucination blur dangerously. During midsummer specifically, when traditional celebrations extend through normal sleeping hours and cultural activities intensify, this natural disorientation effect becomes significantly more pronounced and potentially dangerous for young people. The culturally specific sacred grove theory emerged directly from careful analysis of Oscar's detailed journal entries about pre-Christian Swedish rituals and spiritual practices. Experienced investigators discovered he'd been conducting extensive research into ancient midsummer practices involving deliberate isolation in forest sanctuaries, where young Swedes would traditionally commune with nature spirits through the mystical white night experience. These sacred spaces, hidden deep within Dalarna's endless forests, weren't marked on any modern topographical maps, but existed powerfully in oral tradition, passed down carefully through generations of Swedish families. The particularly chilling lake myth theory drew from ancient Sami folklore that speaks specifically of Siljan's waters, calling irresistibly to those with deep spiritual connections during summer solstice celebrations. The massive meteorite that originally created the lake supposedly left it with otherworldly properties that influenced sensitive individuals, and several unexplained disappearances over the centuries had occurred specifically during summer solstice celebrations around the lake's shores. Oscar's personal journal contained increasingly cryptic and concerning references to hearing the lake's ancient song and understanding what the water truly wants from those who listen. Swedish investigators also seriously considered the psychologically complex cultural preservation obsession theory that Oscar's passionate dedication to maintaining Swedish traditional heritage had gradually driven him to seek increasingly authentic and potentially dangerous experiences. His intensive research had uncovered specific midsummer rituals so ancient and inherently dangerous that medieval Christian authorities had specifically banned them for public safety. Perhaps he'd attempted to recreate sacred ceremonies that required complete isolation from modern interference, venturing alone into remote wilderness areas where ancient Swedes had performed traditional rituals involving symbolic death and spiritual rebirth. Archaeological evidence suggested these ceremonies had historically involved significant physical risks that modern safety knowledge would prevent. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next compelling mysteries from Nordic lands. Because what happened next would fundamentally challenge every standard assumption about disappearances in one of the world's safest regions, revealing that Sweden's ancient cultural roots run deeper and darker than modern Scandinavian society typically acknowledges or discusses. 14 years after that mystical and haunting midsummer night, Lars Lindqvist made a discovery that completely shattered everything investigators thought they understood about his beloved son's mysterious disappearance. While methodically clearing out the family's traditional summer cabin, the same rustic wooden structure where Oscar had spent countless white nights studying Swedish folklore and practicing traditional crafts, Lars found a carefully concealed hidden compartment behind a loose floorboard that had been expertly disguised. Inside the secret space lay Oscar's unknown second journal, one that no family member, friend, or investigator had ever known existed during the extensive search efforts. The leather-bound book, crafted in traditional Swedish bookbinding style, contained detailed entries dated months before his disappearance, written in handwriting that grew increasingly erratic and psychologically intense as midsummer approached. The early entries showed Oscar's characteristic neat, scholarly penmanship, careful letters formed with the precision his historian father had taught him. But as the dates progressed toward that fateful night, the writing transformed dramatically, becoming angular, urgent, almost frantic in its intensity. However, it was the final entry, dated precisely the night Oscar vanished, that stopped Lars's heart completely. The handwriting was entirely different, not just hurried or emotional from stress, but completely transformed into something that appeared ancient, otherworldly. The careful, methodical script Oscar had inherited from his academic father had metamorphosed into something resembling runic inscriptions more than modern Swedish writing. The words themselves sent genuine chills through Lars's Nordic bones. As he read, "Tonight I follow the old path that our ancestors walked before Christianity changed everything. The midnight sun shows what ordinary daylight deliberately hides from modern eyes. The lake remembers what happened before the Christians came and made us forget our true heritage. I understand now why medieval authorities banned the authentic midsummer celebrations. Some ancient traditions require genuine sacrifice. Some forbidden knowledge demands complete transformation. If they find this journal, know that I chose the deeper mysteries willingly. The Swedish forest keeps its sacred promises to those brave enough to make them." But the disturbing entry didn't end there with those unsettling words. Below Oscar's final written statement, in that same strange, angular, runic handwriting style, were mysterious symbols that Lars recognized from his professional historical research, pre-Christian Swedish magical inscriptions that hadn't been actively used for over 1,000 years. The symbols formed a complex pattern that, according to rare medieval sources, represented a dangerous ritual of walking between worlds during summer solstice. Most disturbing of all, the ink appeared remarkably fresh, as if it had been written yesterday rather than 14 years ago. The atmospheric Nordic noir mystery reached its absolute peak as Lars realized with growing horror that he wasn't simply holding his son's personal journal. He was holding evidence of something that defied every rational explanation, something that connected modern Sweden directly to its most ancient and deliberately forbidden mysteries. And it was at this precise moment that the investigation took a completely unexpected turn, revealing that Nordic landscapes hide mysteries far deeper than anyone living could possibly imagine. The discovery of Oscar's secret journal triggered the largest and most comprehensive search operation in Dalarna province's recorded history, mobilizing resources that exceeded even wartime emergency responses. Swedish authorities deployed every available technological resource. Advanced ground-penetrating radar systems capable of detecting the smallest anomalies beneath the forest floor. Sophisticated underwater exploration robots capable of navigating Lake Siljan's deepest meteorite-carved caverns, and thermal satellite imaging technology that could analyze temperature patterns across thousands of square kilometers with unprecedented precision. International experts in handwriting analysis arrived immediately from Copenhagen and Oslo, equipped with advanced graphological equipment specifically designed to detect the most subtle variations in penmanship and identify psychological states through writing analysis. The Swedish National Laboratory ran comprehensive spectroscopic analysis on the mysterious ink, while distinguished historians from Uppsala University studied the runic symbols using high-powered magnification equipment that revealed details, completely invisible to the naked eye. Nordic cooperation reached absolutely unprecedented levels as Finnish lake specialists, Norwegian mountain rescue experts, and Danish archaeological teams joined the massive effort with resources typically reserved for national emergencies. The Swedish government, recognizing that this case had evolved far beyond simple disappearance into something touching the very foundation of national cultural identity, authorized investigative resources typically reserved for national security investigations and international incidents. Advanced weather satellites tracked atmospheric conditions from that specific midsummer night 14 years ago, comparing them systematically with current weather patterns to understand how midnight sun effects might have influenced Oscar's psychological state and decision-making processes. Even Sweden's most advanced psychological profiling units became involved, analyzing how profound cultural connection to pre-Christian traditions might affect a young person's behavior during the mystical hours of summer solstice celebrations. The community response reflected the profound impact this mystery had on Swedish cultural identity itself. Thousands of dedicated volunteers, organized with military precision, equipped with professional GPS devices and sophisticated communication systems that kept search teams connected across the vast Nordic wilderness. Traditional Swedish stoicism cracked visibly under the enormous weight of questions that challenged fundamental assumptions about their safe, rational, modern society. Archaeological teams began systematic excavation of historical sites throughout the region, searching for evidence of ancient ritual locations that might explain Oscar's references to old paths and sacred promises. The investigation had evolved into something resembling an archaeological expedition combined with a criminal investigation and a cultural preservation project. Share this video with someone fascinated by Nordic mysteries. They'll be amazed by this revelation and by what's about to be uncovered about the ancient secrets that Swedish forests have guarded jealously for over a millennium. The climactic breakthrough came from the most unexpected source, Sweden's own legendary scientific precision and analytical methodology turned against ancient mysteries with devastating effectiveness. Handwriting experts using advanced spectrographic analysis and psychological graphology discovered that the different handwriting in Oscar's journal wasn't actually different at all from his normal penmanship. Instead, it represented Oscar's natural writing style revealed under extreme psychological stress that had stripped away years of careful, controlled writing habits learned in Swedish educational institutions. Under intense emotional pressure, his handwriting had reverted to deeper patterns, influenced by months of obsessive study of ancient scripts. The mysterious runic symbols weren't evidence of supernatural possession or otherworldly influence, but rather the natural result of months of intensive obsessive study that had trained his hand to write in ancient scripts as naturally as modern Swedish letters. The fresh ink that had seemed so mysterious proved to be a specialized archival formulation that Oscar had discovered in his father's historical supplies, specifically designed to remain vivid and unchanged for decades without fading or deterioration. But the most shocking revelation came from comprehensive forensic reconstruction of Oscar's final hours using cutting-edge investigative techniques. Advanced analysis of soil samples, pollen distribution patterns, and microscopic organic matter revealed that he had indeed followed an ancient path, not a mystical or supernatural one, but a forgotten historical trail actually used by pre-Christian Swedish communities for traditional midsummer rituals centuries ago. This path, invisible to modern mapping technology, but still traceable through sophisticated archaeological techniques, led directly to a natural cave system hidden beneath Dalarna's forest floor that had been completely unknown to modern residents. Swedish geological surveys confirmed the extensive caves were formed by the same massive meteorite impact that had created Lake Siljan millions of years ago, creating underground chambers where ancient Swedes had indeed conducted summer solstice ceremonies involving temporary isolation, meditation, and spiritual transformation. The cave's unique acoustic properties, created by their unusual geological formation, amplified even whispered sounds dramatically, creating the mysterious Lakes song that Oscar had written about hearing in his journal entries. Most importantly for the investigation, the cave system contained natural air pockets and underground streams that could theoretically sustain human life for extended periods under ideal conditions. The realization struck investigators like Nordic, lightning illuminating a dark landscape. Oscar hadn't vanished through supernatural means or met with immediate tragedy as everyone had feared. He had deliberately isolated himself in an authentic ancient Swedish sanctuary, attempting to experience midsummer mysteries exactly as his ancestors had practiced them, but had become trapped when rockfall blocked the cave entrance during a minor seismic shift that geological records confirmed had occurred 3 days after his disappearance. The tragedy was simultaneously natural and cultural. A young man's passionate connection to his heritage had led him to seek authentic experiences that proved fatal when combined with geological bad luck. Even with all of Sweden's advanced technology and systematic search methods, questions remained that would echo forever through the vast Scandinavian landscape about the dangerous power of ancient traditions to call modern souls back to their deepest cultural roots. The aftermath of discovering Oscar's true fate sent profound ripples through Swedish society that reflected the nation's complex relationship with its ancient heritage and modern identity. His father, Lars, found himself simultaneously grieving Guy's son, who had been lost for 14 years, while mourning the realization that Oscar's passionate dedication to Swedish culture had ultimately led to his tragic end. The discovery sparked intense national debate about the responsibilities of cultural preservation, whether modern Sweden had adequately protected young people from the dangerous allure of ancient practices, or whether society had become so disconnected from its traditional roots that cultural knowledge had become fatally incomplete and dangerous. The cave where Oscar had spent his final days became both a solemn memorial and a stern warning. Officially sealed by Swedish authorities, but marked with a bronze plaque honoring his dedication to cultural heritage, while explicitly cautioning about the risks of attempting to recreate historical practices without proper preparation and safety measures. The local Rättvik community struggled deeply with the Nordic noir reality that their most cherished cultural celebration had been the catalyst for their greatest tragedy. Midsummer festivals continued annually, but with a new undertone of melancholy that reflected Swedish understanding of life's fragile balance between tradition and safety. Mental health professionals noted increased awareness of how cultural obsession could become dangerous isolation, leading to expanded support systems for young people passionate about historical research and cultural preservation. The impact extended far beyond Sweden's borders, influencing how Nordic countries approached cultural education and the preservation of ancient traditions. Archaeological investigation of similar cave systems throughout Scandinavia revealed extensive evidence of historical midsummer practices that had been lost to time, providing invaluable cultural insights while highlighting the need for modern safety considerations. Universities developed new protocols for students studying dangerous historical practices, ensuring academic curiosity wouldn't lead to tragedy. The Swedish government established cultural heritage safety guidelines that balanced preservation with protection. Tourism to the area increased, but with educational components that emphasized both cultural appreciation and natural respect. Local schools began teaching traditional practices alongside safety awareness, ensuring cultural knowledge wouldn't be lost while preventing dangerous experimentation. And so, while some answers were finally found in the depths of Sweden's ancient landscape, others remained buried forever in the mystical twilight and eternal silence of Nordic summer nights, where tradition and tragedy intertwine like colorful ribbons on a midsummer pole dancing in the midnight sun. This extraordinary case reminds us that even in Sweden, consistently ranked as one of the world's most organized, technologically advanced and fundamentally safe societies, the powerful call of ancient heritage can create mysteries that span decades and challenge modern understanding. Oscar's story illuminates the profound, almost mystical connection between modern Nordic peoples and their pre-Christian roots. A cultural bond so deep and psychologically powerful that it can drive individuals to seek authentic experiences that bridge thousands of years of cultural evolution and historical change. The Swedish landscape, with its endless summer twilight, ancient forests that have witnessed countless generations of midsummer celebrations, and lakes formed by cosmic impact, continues to hold secrets that even the most sophisticated search, technologies and investigative methods cannot immediately uncover or explain. The tragedy reveals how cultural preservation, while absolutely essential for maintaining Nordic identity and historical continuity, requires careful balance between honoring ancient wisdom and acknowledging modern safety realities and technological limitations. Sweden's comprehensive response to this mystery, combining cutting-edge investigative techniques with deep respect for traditional knowledge and cultural sensitivity, exemplifies the Nordic approach to bridging past and present responsibly. The case also demonstrates how the midnight sun and mystical atmosphere of Swedish midsummer can create unique psychological states where the boundaries between historical study and lived experience become dangerously blurred for passionate individuals. This disappearance ultimately teaches us that the vast Swedish wilderness, despite modern mapping, communication systems, and safety protocols, remains a powerful natural force capable of concealing human stories for decades, requiring patience, advanced technology, and deep cultural understanding to reveal their truths. The enduring power of this mystery lies in its reminder that Nordic traditions, born from humanity's ancient relationship with one of the world's most challenging and beautiful natural environments, continue to shape modern Scandinavian souls in ways both beautiful and potentially perilous. This case shows us that even in Sweden's most organized society, the eternal Nordic landscape continues to be a profound human mystery, capable of calling people back to their ancestral roots and, sometimes claiming them in the process, leaving only echoes in the endless twilight of Scandinavian summers. If this story of disappearance in Swedish lands impressed you, leave a like, subscribe to the Nordic Missing channel, share with those interested in Scandinavian mysteries, and activate the bell for our next cases. In the comments, tell us your theory about this disappearance. We love your perspectives. Did Oscar's passion for Swedish culture lead to tragedy, or was there something deeper calling him to those ancient caves? What would you have done if you found that mysterious journal? And remember, in the vast Nordic landscapes, there are always more mysteries waiting in the eternal mists of the north. Until the next mystery from Scandinavian lands,